So to start this video, I really need to give you some background as to what I did before, and what still, to a degree, a little bit, what I did before Second Spring Naturals. So I grew up more or less in a family of educators. My father was an English teacher and moved on to be a high school principal and then a superintendent of schools. So needless to say, education was something that was very stressed in my family as being important. So, you know, I liked school. I was a good student, so I went on and earned a degree in Spanish, not knowing what I was going to do with that, but I did know that I really enjoyed languages, and then a business minor, and ended up working for an environmental insurance company for a while in the marketing department, like handling basically different territories, things like that, one of which was Puerto Rico. So I did that for several years until I began having my children and realized that I wanted to do something a little bit different because I needed a job that had some more flexibility. I realized then, even though I was a very ambitious person, that I was going to also want to be a mom that was around for my kids, and I needed to find out how to balance that with work. And that kind of started me on this, 15 or more year journey to try to find that balance, a lot of which was very stressful but also enjoyable at the same time with my work, because I went back and got my master's and got some certificates and just continued school and became a teacher. So I taught, I became certified in Spanish, English literature, and ESL, and I started teaching that at the school level in my local district. So I helped develop a program for ESL and wrote an AP Spanish curriculum. Today I think, like, my gosh, I haven't used it in so long, I don't know that I could even take the course that I wrote. But you know, I had studied abroad in college, and I just still really loved languages and found that I really enjoyed teaching. So while I was teaching, I kind of moved my way all the way up to 12th grade as an English literature and Spanish teacher, and was approached by my principal at the time. His wife was a director of the English Language Institute at the University of Delaware. So she had been asking me to come and work for them during the summer, just teach a class. You know, finally one summer I said, you know, summers are for me and my kids, but I'm gonna do this just because I want to see what it's all about. So basically I stayed there during the summer, and they asked me to stay, and I had to make a tough decision because I really loved my high school teaching job. I had good friends there that I taught with. I loved the students. So ultimately though, I made the decision that maybe that would be a better choice for my kids going into the university to ultimately work there full time and that kind of thing. So 11 years later, you know, I stayed there for a very long time, and during that time I also ended up doing teacher training for the master's department, and worked in the inner city schools in Wilmington, Delaware, through a grant program with some of my colleagues, and did that for a few years. And that was probably one of the favorite parts of my job, of my teaching career in general, was working with those kids and working with those teachers. I was able to kind of write and publish and do real-time research and so forth. But that's all of, you know, about my teaching. Even with that career going where it was, I felt very stressed out most of the time. At this point I had 3 boys, one in high school, one in middle school, and a little one. You know, he was a baby when I was at the university. So I knew that I had to change something. I had turned 40. I really was feeling that level of stress, and one summer I decided, because I had even been teaching during summers, but I was still there for my kids, still doing sports, still doing everything, you know, with their schools and involved, and it takes a toll. They say women can have it all, and I wholeheartedly believe that, but I think it takes a lot of work for women to have it all and to be able to balance their lives. And it is not easy for them. You have to have it within you to just roll with it and get through some pretty tough conversations with bosses, which I never had a problem doing. I had a lot of very hard conversations to stress the importance of my family life, and you know, some reminders of the good teacher that I was, and, you know, did you want to keep me, or that kind of thing. And they always did, and it was always good. But I just reached this point one summer where I just said, you know what, for my birthday, I'm turning 40. If anybody's giving me gifts, please give me like an experience, something I can try to help me relax. So I ended up getting like essential oil party invitations and reflexology appointments and massage and all these things I had never done for myself. I had never even gotten my nails done. So everything was just my kids I prioritized. So anyway, you know, and my husband and I had always kind of flexed our schedules in a way that one of us was always there, and mostly it was him, making sure that he was there so our kids didn't go to daycare. Not that anything's wrong with that, but it, you know, it was just a decision that we had made. And this summer I had really just hit a breaking point where it was too much. So in part of that exploration, I had decided to try to do some natural products in my house. I thought that was kind of like the next logical thing to do. So I was looking into cleaning products and shampoos and things like that. And while I was doing some research on how to make certain things, I thought I could do this. And in the back of my mind, I had always wanted to work for myself. Always that was there. There was always this need to find a way to work for yourself so you can create your own world, your own schedule, set your own priorities, and at that same time help other women to do it. That was always a goal. I have to tell you, like, I always felt defeated, like this is not my path. I'm not meant to be able to do this. I'm not the kind of woman who gets the opportunity to do this. I always felt like that. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to start it. And that's where Second Spring Naturals started. It started with me and one of my best friends that from childhood, making soaps and opening an Etsy shop. And that went on for a couple of years until I decided this needs to become a business, and I'm going to take the teaching down to half-time and get the university to work with me. And again, some hard conversations followed, and that's what we did. And I ultimately ended up taking over Second Spring Naturals. She was a teacher too, and wasn't interested in really pursuing the business aspect of it so much. So it worked out really well. And I'll come back in a little bit to give you part 2 of this. All right, so let's get to part 2. Part 2 is now I have, I'm still working at the university. I am running the business, still building the business because it was brand new and I had to rebrand it and do all of these things. Then I had to again have some conversations with my boss, and it turned out there was a new course developing, and it was a writing course, and it met so many days. It only met 2 days a week instead of 3, and basically he worked with me. It was not easy. It was not something that they wanted to do or that they typically did do, but I was able to move from a full-time faculty member to a part-time faculty member. There were some snags in between with HR and benefits and all of that, where I had to take like a brief 6-month break between teaching in order to reset myself as part-time. And this was all like some kind of a weird rule with the university and their benefits and HR, and none of us was aware of that this was something that we had to do. So that was a really scary time for me. I was able to jump into my my local school and sub for the ESL teacher, do the testing and so forth. She was going to France and was going to extend that, so it just worked out. So I ended up jumping right back into the university right after that in January, after taking a semester break to reset myself. So now I was a part-time employee. I'm still running the business, building it, and it's just kind of getting on its feet. And I then taught, I feel like I taught 2 classes for a while, and had to basically really readjust to a new income level. But then I was still being asked to do teacher training and all of these other things that I really I enjoyed doing, but it wasn't something that I had planned to do, because the whole purpose of this was to scale down my hours so I could build the business while still maintaining an income at the time. Sorry, I'm at the shop looking at potential customers coming. So that worked out for quite a while, and I did it for years and years. As this business was getting going. I'm in year 7 now, so this is the first full year that I have not taught for them. It was terrifying to kind of move away from that. But I was able to do it, and it was through very hard conversations, being very persistent, and showing my worth was the biggest thing. They wanted me there, so they were willing to work with me. I had really good student reviews, that kind of thing. So those three things are essential elements in that. You know, don't go in and kind of half-heartedly do your job and then expect people to work with you. Sorry about that, I got cut off. Again, you have to kind of do those three things and really keep working at it. And even when I was able to kind of make that move, it was still very difficult. These were some of the hardest years. I thought the years that I was leaving behind of you know, the runs to Wilmington and trying to manage my kids' sports and schedules and be home with them and all of those things, I thought those were the hard years, but the hardest years were to come when I actually was making this transition over. So the university was wonderful. They always worked with me, always offered a space for me to come back. My office was still there. I had offers to buy my products for new, you know, teachers coming in, do new groups. I used to do some teacher training with groups of like teachers from Japan, things like that. So, you know, and there were gift bags that would come for our visiting faculty. So they would offer to buy my lip balms and that kind of thing, have me come in and do, there was a Saudi women's group that met, and they wanted me to come in and do a presentation on how I had started the business. I actually taught an entrepreneurial business class. So there were a lot of things that they did for me that made it a lot easier. I think the hardest part was just the fear that I had, and the fear always revolved kind of around finances. It was also this fear of always being this overachieving person, and knowing that I was a good teacher, leaving that career behind. It scared me, but I knew ultimately that I needed to have control over my own destiny, and that it would be better and worth it if I kept going. So what I did was I ended up choosing a couple of companies to work for online. I found two really good ones, and I am still able to teach in the mornings. I teach online. I really, really enjoy it. I've been doing it for 2 years now, and I'm gonna jump off and back on here in a second. I have customers coming in. So fear is the thing that you have to really be able to move past the most, and it's what we kind of place upon ourselves, those limitations that we place upon ourselves that really are the hardest. It wasn't anybody else kind of inflicting that emotion on me. It was me. Now, don't get me wrong, I had to have those hard conversations with my boss, with my husband, with, you know, a lot of it just came down to, I know I'm at a breaking point, I have to make a change, and, you know, my husband jumped on board, which was a huge blessing. If you're doing something like this, it's really important to make sure you have support from your family, from your spouse, because it's hard, and starting a business requires a lot of time. You know, I've made all of these things, and I had to figure out how to brand it, how to get the recipes right, how to test them, how to set up the business end of it. I have videos all the way down that will show you the systems that I use for accounting, for everything else. There's so much to consider when it's just you, and when you're in the beginning, you really can't hire anybody to help you, because you just, unless you have something saved up, which I did not have things saved up for the business, or funds saved for the business. So that is something that I'm doing now. I created this schedule of teaching online in the mornings. I'm done so early because my students are international, and I can finish up by like 9 a.m. And what I'm going to do is kind of share with you what my daily schedule looks like at this point, because it took a long time for me to establish a schedule. It also it took a long time for me to feel comfortable in a schedule, and I finally feel really good about where I am and what I'm doing. So then I'll add a clip on here that, or it might even be like a second video. But I still have so much to share. I'm going to show you what my library at home looks like. We redid the whole house. I had a studio put in my house. The library is where I teach. It's, you know, basically the living room turned into an office. I'll show you what that looks like, what my teaching space looks like, and I'm going to share with you basically what my daily routine looks like these days, why it works for me, and I'll even share financially some information about how my life is actually better financially now than it was when I was working full time and thinking that that was the only thing that was going to sustain me and my family, when lo and behold, it turns out there is kind of an infinite possibility out there. If you work for yourself, you can really kind of create a whole new world. I'll talk to you a little bit about journaling and manifesting and all of those things as well, okay? I think I may actually even just break this video up into 2 different videos, do one this Thursday, put it out, and then I'll put part 2 up next Thursday. So make sure you subscribe and jump in there and stay with me for this, because I do have so much. I just don't want to leave anything out, and make sure I'm organizing my thoughts. All right, thanks for staying with me. Or to wrap up what I've started in describing how I've gone from working full-time to working more or less full-time for myself. It's still really hard to get those words out because it was such a fear for me. I'm actually going to talk now about what my daily schedule looks like these days, now that I've gotten the routine together. And I thought, since I was doing that, I would give you a little bit of a change in scenery and take you with me on one of the things that I do every day now, because I don't have to be at a location at a specific time unless I choose to do that. So I'm walking in the woods at one of my favorite parks, and I'm actually going to start jogging as soon as this video is over. So I'll take you with me on my warm-up, and you can get some scenery as I talk about this next part of the story. So now that I'm doing my teaching that I described before, and I will show you some clips of what my office looks like, and I'll insert them here. Okay, this is my somewhat messy, thrown together teaching space. So this desk used to be my grandfather's, and I wanted to not buy a new desk for in here because I have a lot of kind of family heirloom things. We took the counter off of our island when we just redid our kitchen and put that on top of it so that I have this big space here. My laptop sits up on that white, that white thing there. I don't even know what to call it. It's like a lift for the laptop to bring it up, so when you're teaching, you can be more level. I've got my big lights over here to brighten up the room, and then the students see the backdrop, which is, I'll just give you a little look at my library. I always wanted a library, so I turned my formal living room that we never used into it, and this holds all the literature that I used to teach and from studies and so forth. So that's it. And we just had this barn door put on to separate it from the rest of the house. So this is where I teach. I am finished by 9 in the morning. So